Wondering what to wear backpacking? Well, I just finished a 5-day backpacking trip in the Grand Canyon. This is what I wore. You know what? Let me show you. There you have it. Those are the clothes that I brought to the Grand Canyon. So why those particular clothes? Let's get into the details and we'll start with tops. So first of all, you have to understand I went in late April. So in late April, the forecast was calling for temperatures to be anywhere between 20 degrees Fahrenheit and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And on a couple of the days, they were predicting rain and even possibly snow. So I had to be prepared to wear clothes for the extreme heat all the way down to the below freezing. And I looked at what the historic high was and the historic low was during that last week of April there in past years, and realizing it could get that hot and that cold, I wanted to be ready for both extremes. So the first item I brought was bathing suit. So with the bathing suit, I brought a top that I figured I could use kind of as a tank top. So the second thing I brought then was this cute little blue tank top. So I brought that. I figured it'd be really nice to wear on the hot days. And I did wear it, but I started to realize I was in the sun a lot and you get burnt when you're wearing stuff like that. And I was not very good at reapplying the sunscreen frequently enough, so I ended up wearing more frequently this. So this is my next layer up. It's called a sun shirt. If you've never heard of them, I really recommend you check them out. So the nice thing about sun shirts is you can wear them when they're hot. The long sleeves helps protect you from the sun, so you don't have to keep reapplying sunscreen or apply any for that matter in the areas that are covered. And the sun shirts are designed to help wick away your sweat, so it helps keep you cool even though you're wearing a long sleeve shirt. So that is what I ended up wearing a good chunk of the time that it was hot. So let's look at the next item. As the temperatures started to cool, I was able to put on this. It's a merino wool sweater. Merino wool is awesome because it does several things. One, it has a tendency not to stink. So when I knew I was going to be spending 5 days in the Grand Canyon, I wanted something that wouldn't be nearly as stinky afterwards. The second reason I like it is that when it gets warm, it actually helps keep you cool to some degree. And also when it gets cold, it helps keep you warm. So it's really good at helping you to regulate your temperatures. So for me personally, I found I was pretty comfortable in it, anywhere between 40 and 60 degrees, just wearing it alone. And then I could layer up when it started getting below 40 degrees to stay comfortable. So if it did keep getting cooler, I had a couple more things. So knowing it might get below freezing, I brought this vest. So I figured I'd bring a vest instead of an actual jacket because I want to just keep my interior core warm, and that would help keep the rest of me warm, and so that would take up less room and weight in my bag. I really was hoping not to bring it, and in retrospect I probably didn't need to bring it, but knowing it could get down to 20 degrees, there was no way I was going to be in a situation where I couldn't keep myself warm. So the final thing I brought to kind of keep myself warm was my rain jacket. So it's a coat. It's not just a simple rain jacket. So it will keep me warm when it is cold. So instead of bringing just a rain jacket and in addition bringing like a puffy coat, I decided to bring all in one and bring the raincoat. And so I did end up needing to wear that several times, not only when it rained, and thankfully when it rained it tended to be cooler, so it was a lot easier to wear that. but I also needed to wear it a few times when it got into the evenings or in the early mornings when it got kind of cool and breezy out. So it was perfect to have along for this trip. So some other clothes I brought a pair of gloves. I just kept them in my coat pocket. I never needed them, but if it got cold enough, I wanted to keep my little fingers warm. I brought this little hat. I figured if it got really, really cold at night, I could layer up with my head coverings. So I never actually ended up wearing this, but I did wear the buffs. So that's what I'm wearing right now, is a buff. And I brought a couple different versions of buffs. These are nice. I used them as a head covering to help protect my head from the sun, so if my head wouldn't burn. And then in addition, I could use it at night to help keep my head warm and keep the warm air trapped. Buffs are nice also in that you can wear them around your neck or in different ways. So if it got hot or cold, you can get them wet to help keep you cooler. If it's cold, you can just kind of wear it like a scarf. And so there's all sorts of inventive ways in which you can wear buffs to help keep you warm. So next is bottoms. For bottoms, I brought 4 different layers. So for the warmer temperatures, I had a pair of swimsuit shorts that I could wear. Next, I brought a skirt. So I wore the skirt when it was warmer. The skirt's kind of nice because you get airflow with the skirt, and in addition, in terms of getting a tan on your legs, it tends not to have a hard tan line, so I appreciate that with skirts as well. Now, for when it started getting cooler, I had 2 different options, and I could layer up. So the first option was I brought thermal leggings, or thermal yoga pants maybe. I don't know the proper term for these, but they're specifically designed to keep you warmer when it gets cooler. So I brought these along. And then in addition, I brought these. So these are actually snowboarding pants, and a bit odd to take hiking, but the reason is it was supposed to rain. Snowboarding pants are really good at being water resistant, so it would be great in a rain shower. Second reason is it was supposed to get cold at night, and these things I love. They're really good. I'm really comfortable in these up to about 70 degrees, but they also keep me really comfortable down to about 30 degrees. And then when I wear something like the thermal leggings with them, I can be pretty comfortable down to about 10. So these were great to have along, but I didn't really need them. So underclothes, what did I do there? Let's start with socks. So it was 5 days that I was on the trail. So for 5 days, I brought 3 pairs of socks. So one was a pair of Injinji socks with the intention of wearing those to help prevent blisters. I failed to wear these on day 1, and I ended up getting blisters on day 1. So that didn't work out in my favor. So I don't know how much they helped or didn't help. I did wear them the second day. Generally speaking, what I ended up doing is I would wear 1 pair of socks through the majority of the day, and then when we kind of got to camp, I would switch to a fresh pair of socks, just because as socks get sweaty and they rub, it just becomes less comfortable. So it was very comfortable to switch into a fresh pair of socks in the afternoons when we got to camp. And then what I usually did is when I got into the tent at night, I would switch into a 3rd pair of socks, and they were just my sleeping socks. So I always knew I had a really clean pair of socks in the evening that I could wear. And so that is how I rotated through 3 pairs of socks. I basically wore at least 2 every day, if not ended up wearing all 3, depending on what the situation was for the day. And then in addition, for undergarments for the top, I just brought 1 sports bra, and then I had my bathing suit as a second option there if I wanted to use it that way. And then finally for underwear, I only brought 2 pairs of underwear. And what I ended up doing though to kind of supplement that is I brought I learned this trick from someone. Instead of having to bring multiple pairs of underwear, you can bring just a couple of these and insert them, and then you can rotate these out every day. And one neat thing about the Grand Canyon is these are a piece of trash that you can throw away. In general, with the Grand Canyon, whatever you pack in, you have to pack out, but there's a couple exceptions, as you can see in the picture, of what can be thrown away in a couple of different locations at some of the restrooms around the interior of the canyon. So good to note, and this may or may not be useful if you're trying to save a little bit of room. You have to carry them with you initially, but you can get rid of them throughout your trip. This was an item I didn't get a chance to cover earlier. Not really a piece of clothing, but I wore it with me all the time. It's just a simple little a little traveler bag. It's designed usually to hold your passport, and you can kind of tuck it inside. So it's a very small purse, basically, is what it is for secure documents. So I used it for keeping my ID and my keys, and then as well as I could easily put my phone in here, and I usually would put some sort of small snack in here. So throughout the day, if I felt like I was in need of getting more salt intake or something like that, I had really easy access to getting those snacks or those salt sources. So this ended up being really handy as well. It's a little tiny for everything I wanted to hold, but I made it work. When talking about clothing, you cannot forget about the shoes. So for this particular trip, I brought 2 pairs of shoes. I brought a pair of trail runners, and I brought a pair of water shoes. So the trail runners were my mainstay for hiking the Grand Canyon, and then the water shoes I used as just a camp shoe for when we got into camp, so I could slip out of the tennis shoes, and the water shoes were just something easy to slip in and out of as needed around camp. So there you have it. That is what I wore on my 5-day backpacking trip in the Grand Canyon. So hopefully this is giving you some ideas for your own backpacking adventures, and I would love to hear what tips and tricks that you have all learned over the years of what works best for you, especially when it comes to layering up and not taking too much so you keep that weight down in the pack, but allowing you that versatility to adjust to the weather changes and the temperature changes. So thank you for watching today. I appreciate you all. You take care. Bye now.